Hello, hello, and welcome to our partner training on Protect Your Customers' Data, Avoid a Breach. I'm Caroline Nguyen from the Channel Marketing team, here with David Delgado, the Regional Product Manager, on all things security.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you for everyone for joining today. So we're going to be talking about data protection and data breaches. We'll cover kind of today's environment, what's happening in data breaches, talk to you a little bit about comprehensive defense and what that means, cover the different types of hacking inside of a system, and then we'll walk through different scenarios and specific products that might pertain best to those scenarios. So let's go ahead and get started. So as you can imagine, as big data becomes more important and data analytics become more important, the risk of all that consumer information becomes more and more vulnerable. So we've already seen over the past 4 years a 50% year-over-year growth. And so far this year, in the first half, we're already on track to beat that. We've hit a 54% growth. Concerning part is that 3 out of the 10 breaches were the largest of all time, and 8 out of those breaches accounted for 78% of the data lost. So that's very concerning when you think about some of the information that could be attacked. Not only is it sensitive information like potential customer names, social security number, addresses, but the most targeted information is email addresses and passwords. So you can imagine once this gets out into the dark web and is being sold, it can be used to not only manipulate your email systems, but potential bank accounts, social media, and other types of programs. So it's very important for us to be aware of this so that we can help educate our consumers, because businesses in general need to be doing a better job of the holistic view of data protection. But it's not just businesses, right? It doesn't account for 100%. Businesses actually only account for about 67% of all breaches or hacks. Also included in that are the medical industry with 14%, governments, which is 12%, which is very concerning because they have more stringent regulations on them, so that the penalties and fines can be higher for them. And then education at 7%, which I personally get concerned about because I think of my children who are in school, and it's, they're stealing educational information, potentially kids' names, kids' birth dates. And so it's very important that we try to look at this and help our customers come up with better solutions, because it's not only us that are noticing this, it's governments as well. Right? Over the past few years, several different government laws have been passed. Started with HIPAA, as well as the more recently the California Consumer Protection Act. Nevada passed a new law. Maine has passed a new law, and then of course there's big countries like the GDPR that was passed in Europe. And while we think, well, our businesses aren't there, it doesn't affect us, the broad extension of these laws means that in general, if we are selling, or a company is selling to a customer in any one of these places, they're bound by these regulations and by these fees. So very concerning, great opportunity for, I think, the reseller community. A statistic came out where small businesses to medium businesses were surveyed, asking them if they thought they would be prepared for CCPA January 1st when it got enacted. 50% of those companies said they would not be prepared. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to educate ourselves, help educate them, and help get our end users up to speed as quickly as possible. Particularly because not all these threats are cyber attacks. We always think of threats as somebody hacking into our system, or sitting behind a computer hacking into a server, or doing special coding. That's not always the case, right? And the legislations don't care where the data breaches happen, just that they do. A data breach can happen as simple as a visitor or an employee with a grudge on a company that takes a USB flash drive, puts it into a computer or some other device, and uploads a virus into the server of the system, right? It could be something as simple as somebody walking by a desk in the IRS office and picking up a piece of paper with potentially sensitive information, social security numbers, birth dates, names, as well as, computer stolen. If you look at the guy on the screen, first thought is, why is this creepy guy coming out of my house? But then you start to realize he's stolen your computer. You start to think about the sensitive information that might be on that computer, all the work that you've done. And so it's important that we start to think about all the different avenues that companies are going to be responsible for and governments are going to hold them responsible for. Because while the majority of incidents and data breaches do occur from outside, studies show that about 11% happen from inside the company. So helping as resellers, helping our customers understand the different types of security measures and defense strategies that they should be implementing, not only in the digital side, but from the physical security side as well. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. All right. Creating a defense, as we said, cybersecurity, most companies are already aware of that. They have some type of antivirus software or malware already in place. But there's other types of ways that data can get lost. There's visual hacking, there's physical security, user authentication, all these ways that sensitive information can be lost outside of a company that they will be inevitably responsible for. So what do we need to do to help our customers? First, help them understand that they need strong policies in place, right? But policies aren't going to do anything if they don't have enforcement measures. And then finally, they have to have the right tool set in order to actually implement these different policies. So let's look a little bit at what these different hacking methods are, and then we'll talk about potential solutions and get into different verticals and how we can help them solve problems. So the first is physical security. We all know, laptops are becoming more prominent as well as tablets. So the idea of the loss and theft of those products is becoming more and more prevalent. In fact, 1 in 10 laptops is going to be stolen, most likely out of an office as well. So it's not even happening outside of the place. But that may change as we see more hot desking WeWork places. So we need to be prepared for those types of solutions as well. And it's not just the laptop that gets stolen, right? Most survey of IT practitioners reported that out of stolen laptops, 56% resulted in some type of data breach. So that's over half of those laptops and devices that are getting stolen that are eventually going to cause our customers problems, cost them money. So the second form that we're going to talk about is visual hacking. This is also known as shoulder surfing in some communities, and it's probably the most overlooked form of hacking because it is so simplistic, right? It's looking at somebody's computer or laptop. It's looking at a piece of paper on their desk. However, a research study by Ponemon, it said that out of the visual hacks that they tried to implement, 91% of them were successful. So it's not that hard to actually get information. You may think, well, how much information could they really get? But out of those 91%, 52 of them actually hacked into sensitive information. So we can see it's a very simple form to be able to implement and pull off in terms of hacking, but it's also pretty simple in order to prevent that. So as long as we're aware of those measures and help educate our customers, I think this is a good tool for us to bring value to the end users. And then finally, it's user authentication, right? This is essentially the act of human to machine transfers, right? Making sure that somebody getting on a laptop or on a web service is who they say they are. Over the last year, the biggest market share fell with, obviously banking, financial service, and insurances as they're dealing with very sensitive information. However, studies shows that the government sector is getting really interested in user authentication. It's expected to increase 23% over the next 5 years, year over year. So I think there's a big opportunity for us to educate ourselves and be able to be there available to answer these questions as not only businesses, but government sectors, education sectors begin to ask questions on how they can better protect their consumers. So how do we protect against these different types of hacks? So there's a couple different ways to see here in terms of visual hacking. First, and probably the most well overlooked, is shredders, right? Actually making sure that documents that are laying around that have sensitive information get taken care of. Second is privacy screens, making sure that you're reducing shoulder surfing. People can't look over your shoulder and see what's going on. Biometric authentication, our VeraMark system, in order to help consumers log in safely into a computer and onto web services. And then physical hacking, locking down our physical machines, either with next-gen security, which we'll talk about here in a minute, or just traditional locking methods. So let's consider now a couple different verticals. We'll go through small business, government, as well as education, talk about the different challenges and needs they may have, as well as focus in on one or two main solutions for those different verticals. So the small business industry, now as we kind of hinted towards, is experiencing a lot of change in mobile work environments, hot desking, global travel, and global business. And so there's a lot more movement in these areas. So laptop locking is going to be vital to making sure that they're not losing data and they're not losing devices. Next generation hardware and security is going to be very important, particularly as businesses move towards smaller devices and tablets. So how do we assist them in making sure those devices don't get lost? We'll go a little further into that here in just a moment. Visual hacking, very important. Director privacy screen is probably great for the business environment because it's an easy on and off solution. So it can help protect them in either scenario, whether they need to collaborate with others or if they're in a private setting. Shredders, I think, is obviously a great solution for small businesses. One of the important things about shredders in terms of visual hacking, I think, in this vertical is that it's often not up to the IT manager, right? Most of the other solutions that we're going to talk about all may go through the IT manager. However, the shredders may go through a facilities manager. So making sure that we know who the correct person is to engage with and ask questions and ask what their needs are, I think is very important as well. And then finally, user authentication. Our VeraMark IT is great for IT managers who may be doing big deployments or individuals that are moving from office to office or device to device. So let's talk a little bit further about the next-gen hardware. So as I kind of talked about, more and more corporations are moving to smaller devices, smaller laptops that may not have security slots. So how do we lock those down, right? As well as, people are using Surface Books or Surface Goes as a substitute to laptops. So we've introduced next generation security methods. For instance, our combo lock for Surface Pro and Go, as well as keyed lock for Surface Pro and Go. This was actually designed in conjunction with Microsoft, so to make sure that it met up to the highest standards, which means that it's got anti-scratch protection, so they're not going to ruin the device or hurt the device at all. We've also introduced a dual head method. So lots of people are using their Surface Pro connecting to a monitor while at a desk station, but then disconnecting, taking the Surface Pro Go when they go off to a meeting or traveling for business. And so this is a great solution for those tablets that may not have a locking device. Next would be the Ultrabooks. We've introduced a key fob locking station. This is for devices that are so thin that the manufacturers have decided not to put slots into them, right? So this device essentially has an encrypted key fob that you can hold up to the locking station, opens the gates, place your laptop in, and simply push the gates closed. So then when you're ready to leave again, you just open it up, take your laptop, and go on to your next event. So you can see these are two very easily implemented solutions to physical security. And when you consider the statistics show that if physical security is implemented, it can possibly reduce laptop theft by 85%. So that's a big number when you think about how quick and easy something like a laptop station to dock and undock is. Next, let's talk a little bit about privacy and how privacy matters. Particularly in the SMB corporate world, because we're getting into more open space work environments, anyone can be a visual hacker. Anyone walking by, it could be unintentional, right? They could just walk by, see something that wasn't intended for them. Or in our new global business environment, how many times have you been on an airplane and there's been a couple of people around you, working, doing something on the laptop, and you can see everything they're doing, right? The Ponemon study shows that, visual hacking can occur in as little as 15 minutes, and sensitive data can be lost. And so as we move to these different workstations or traveling environments, it's important that we help our customers understand the risk and protect them. And so we have a variety of different privacy screens to help every customer. And not only do they limit the viewing range by 60% offset, 30% offset, or 60% in all, which keeps wandering eyes from looking at the screen. They also have an anti-scratch ability, so they protect the monitor itself. And then they have some health benefits. They've got a blue light filter on them, so it helps that blue light from hitting your eyes and affecting your vision, as well as an antimicrobial coating that just kind of keeps germs off of it. And so this is another really easy solution to help our customers understand how it benefits them. In this case, studies show that by just implementing visual hacking prevention, you can reduce breaches of sensitive data by 28%. So hopefully you're starting to see how this holistic view of not only cybersecurity, but visual hacking, physical hacking, and user authentication as a group can start to reduce the amount of risk our partners are taking in data protection. So next, let's move on to one of the other culprits in big data breaches, the government agencies, which are responsible for 12% of breaches, right? And this looks to projected growth in this industry. So here we have a little bit of a different kind of environment, right? The government agencies may not be as mobile as small businesses and corporations, so they've got a different set of problems. In addition, they have higher regulations that are they're subject to by the government themselves. So in this case, the IT manager may be looking for a different type of solution, physical security, keyed laptops, combo locks, different types of locks for workstations themselves instead of mobile environments. Again, visual hacking is very important when it comes to different types of groups, VA, where they're dealing with potential healthcare, those types of things. Shredder is going to come and play here because you have the IRS and other military companies that still have lots of sensitive papers lying around and need to make sure that they're actually getting rid of those, sensitive documents in a proper manner. And then finally, biometric authentication. VeraMark IT is TAA approved and helps with big IT and enterprise deployments. So we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute and what that means. And then finally, a Surface Pro CAT case. We find that in those departments where they are getting out in the field and using Surface products, the Surface Pro case has become extremely popular. It's military drop grade, so it means it can be dropped from 6 feet and the device will stay fine. It also meets FIPS 201 reader standards, so it's compatible with Class A, B, and C cards that the federal government is using right now. So it's a great product as we try to look at how do we fully service the government agencies in terms of protecting their equipment and their data. So let's get a little bit further and talk about the different locking methods that the government may be interested in versus the corporate, mobile solutions. So in this case, right, office environments tend to be more workstation oriented. So they're going to want something other than those next generation solutions. They're probably going to want to be able to lock down their monitors as well as their laptops, potentially a locking station or a desktop. So it's important to understand what their needs are and what they're trying to lock down so that we can match them with the right solution. Next question is, what are the concerns of the IT manager? Are they concerned about anyone being able to unlock the computer and walk away? So they want more of a supervisor key where only they can unlock a device and move it from place to place? Or are they in a situation where they don't want to deal with keys at all? They want to make sure that they have combinations, they can register those with us and then not have to worry about keeping track of those or keeping track of how to unlock a specific system. The second part of being able to understand what the needs are for a consumer, an agency, is understanding what type of lock they need, right? And this goes back to their actual locking ports. So Kensington has been the industry standard for over 25 years with our main T-bar lock and Kensington security slot. This falls into the MicroSaver 2.0 family. You've got a combination lock as well as a click-safe solution that we'll talk about at the end. However, that standard slot is forced to change as companies begin to move to the smaller and smaller devices. So we've implemented a nano security slot. This has a cleat slot, so it's a much smaller footprint and is able to connect to these smaller devices. Next, some of the industry OEMs have gone away from our standard type of solution and created their own called a wedge-shaped slot. So we've introduced a solution for that. It's part of the N17 family. This comes in keyed lock as well as combination. And then finally, the ClickSafe family, which is really for IT managers who, in their environment, they have all types of different locking slots. They don't want to keep track of different cords for each one. So they can implement an anchor like you see here into the device and then be able to move that device from station to station utilizing the same cable. So this just gives a little bit of flexibility in the ability to lock down these solutions. So the next thing we'll talk about is the VeraMark solution. According to the Verizon security report, privilege misuse and error by insiders and public agencies accounted for 30% of breaches. This means just by sharing passwords or logging into sites they shouldn't be or using machinery they shouldn't use, that's resulting in these 30%. So how do we assist our customers in getting around that? The perfect solution is a VeraMark IT. It's TAA compliant. It has a match-in sensor. It's match-in sensor, which means that the fingerprint algorithm is actually held on the device itself. So this is great for IT administrators. They have to go from someone forgot their password, so they've got to go log into the computer and and get them logged back in. So the other big items on here are the anti-spoofing technology, which basically means that somebody can't take a fake fingerprint or a picture of a fingerprint and put it up to the device and log in. The technology is so sophisticated that it acknowledges that that is fake and denies them access to the system. And all of this is kind of held to high standards by the FIDO Alliance. So this product is FIDO certified. FIDO Alliance is a conglomerate of companies that have come together to help define what user authentication should be, both now and moving forward. So we've got a short clip that we'll show for you that'll kind of walk you through what FIDO is.
Fast Identity Online, also called FIDO, is a new set of standards for secure and fast online authentication that's replacing passwords, which are unreliable and easy to forget. FIDO is designed to help mitigate data breach risks, reduce friction for users, save time, and save money on password resets. There are different standards of FIDO authentication, with the goal of enabling users to access online services through security keys, with facial, fingerprint, and voice recognition. Standards like FIDO U2F allow for two-level authentication, which is the most common seen today. And FIDO 2 is the latest level of security that evolves the standard into a truly passwordless solution, with multi-level authentication for an added degree of security. FIDO 2 uses web authentication that allows users to access online services through a standard API that is built into browsers and related web platform infrastructure. Email us to learn more about FIDO authentication.
Some of you haven't seen this before. We do have a Y biometrics section under solutions on Kensington.com that has a wealth of short clips and information, as well as different standards in biometrics, Y biometrics, anti-spoofing, and then how the VeraMarks play into those user authentication roles. So I just highly recommend you go out there and take a look and try to read through some of that information. So key takeaways just on the government section in general are, they are high risk, but they have a high regulations to them. So they're well motivated in order to fix these problems and create a universal protection, both in visual, physical, and user authentication, as well as they're expected to grow 23% user authentication over the next 5 years. So there's great opportunity in being able to move into that space and help those customers understand what they need. Let's just talk about the last vertical, which is the education, made up 7% of all data breaches. So this section, education has a little bit different of challenges, right? They're trying to manage tight budgets, along with still trying to advance the technology inside of the schools and educate their students, while still maintaining some type of security, right? Making sure data doesn't get out there, devices don't get lost. So they have a little bit different of a need. So the first thing we'll talk about is our charging cabinets. Lots of different schools are now using tablets to help their students get on to educational services online, as well as teaching them coding and other activities on various platforms. So our charging cabinet provides a good solution for them to be able to charge that device overnight without having to worry about the risk of it getting lost. So this can hold up to 10 tablets. They're not too unique to any type of tablet, so they can hold an iPad, Galaxy Tab, Kindle, and they can be stacked on top of each other in order to create more space inside of a room for more products. Second would be visual hacking, right? This is very important inside of a school district where you've got kids' names, birth dates, other information, addresses. So in terms of how we suggest administrators or nurses help protect themselves, we do have a Snap 2 version of a privacy screen. This is essentially something that goes over the top of a monitor and is able to fit different versions or sizes of monitors, and allows for the administrator, principal, whoever, to easily take that off and share information with another teacher, with a parent, but then still easily put it back on in order to have that all the time kind of protection. Office shredders as well are probably going to be very important in this area, as what we've seen is 35% of errors or in data breaches in education are caused by miscellaneous errors. So this is everything from emailing the wrong person the wrong information, sending the wrong information to someone, or leaving just sensitive information out for anyone to see. So we have an opportunity to educate them on how our shredders may be able to help them. So if we continue on, you see that in general, across industries, 69% of data breaches in the past 12 months happened by loss of paper and theft, or some type of electronic device information. So it's important that we at least acknowledge that paper is still out there and that it needs to be disposed of in a specific way. So then how do we share this information with the end user? What do they need to know about shredders? Well, in terms of shred cuts, there's essentially 3 different types. There's the strip cut, which cuts papers into long, thin strips. Not recommended. It's not going to meet any type of regulations. Essentially, someone can, if really wanted to, could come back and put that paper together to find out what information's on there. Then there's a cross cut, which cuts it one way and then another. So this is a higher sense of security. This is going to be your education areas, maybe your small businesses. Then we get to the highest level of security in micro cut. This is going to cut paper down to a fine confetti. So this is probably more utilized in military, IRS, or financial institutions. So this is important, I think, because in that study from Ponemon, what they found is that 55% of respondents didn't have any measures in place to dispose of documents. So we know documents are still being used. However, people aren't even thinking about it. And with new laws coming out, new regulations coming out, they need to be prepared for either implementing some type of solution or suffering the financial consequences of the data loss. So just to review, a couple of the things that we want to focus on are, number one, big data is going to continue to be a problem. Data breaches are going to continue to be a problem. So we need to be prepared to help our customers look at a holistic view of how to implement data solutions, not only from cybersecurity, but physical security, as well as visual security and user authentication. And then finally, knowing more about what the needs are of any particular industry or channel is going to help define what the best holistic solution for them is. So, knowing if they're on a thin budget, how do we facilitate that need? If they're looking at the VeraMark versus VeraMark JT, how do we facilitate that need?
All right, thanks, David. As always, we truly value your partnership with us, and we're here to help. So thank you for attending our Protect Your Customers' Data, Avoid a Breach training for this quarter.